Well, first off, I don't think the evidence has been presented that makes this unequivocal. But look, your lead into this was the president's going to go to Congress to try to get the approval. Really, the president needs to go to the American people. My calls this morning are running 360 to 2 against this action. No one in this area believes it is advisable or a good idea. And let's remember, right before going into Iraq, the popularity of that invasion was about at 80%. And where were we 3 or 4 short years later, but at about a 20% popularity? This time, if you go in with 20% popularity, it's not long before you actually have a situation that's unmanageable, that's ungovernable.
You specifically said that the information was thin being the operative word. How did the administration make its case to you, and why do you say it's thin?
Well, I said it was thin because it was physically thin. I made a special trip up to Washington to go to the classified room to receive the classified documents that the administration had made available to members of Congress, and I was struck by the fact that there were just a few pages. I thought there would be a significant amount of scientific data. I thought there'd be chemical analyses. I thought there would be autopsy reports and pictures, but no, there were a few printed pages, and that was about it. So my comment that the evidence was thin literally referred to the fact that the evidence packet I was handed was thin.
Well, now, Nancy Pelosi said just a short time ago that from a humanitarian standpoint that we have to do something. We can't ignore this situation. So if not with a strike, how would you suggest we handle what's happening there? Well,
that question, of course, could have been asked a year ago or 2 years ago. What have we heard? 100,000 civilians have died in Syria. The refugee floods across the border into Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon have been significant. I also sit on the Helsinki Commission, and we had a hearing about a month and a half ago about the status of the refugees in those countries. This has been a problem for some time, and the response doesn't seem like it's been well thought out. So now today we're talking about a shot across the bow, a pinprick of the Assad administration. But honestly, where do you go from here? You send a few Tomahawks and bomb a runway at his airfield, but what's next? He's still in control. He still controls all of the chemical weapons. If you really want to do something to degrade his ability to use those on his own people again, you have to treat him as you did Saddam Hussein, and that's at the end of a rope.
Well, let me ask, because you mentioned a shot across the bow, and that term has been used a number of times, but after John McCain met with the president, and he's been one of his staunchest critics, he said he thought it looked like there were more significant than that, and there was more to it. Does that allay maybe your concern somewhat?
Well, I mean, obviously I'd have to hear that for myself. I've got the greatest respect for Senator McCain and have always been supportive of him in many of the things he's tried to do during his career. But he's privy to information that I have not seen, and I got to tell you, I left here with trying to keep an open mind on Sunday, went up and reviewed the documents, sat through 2.5 hours of the classified briefing, and I left that room with probably more questions than answers.
One last question. What's next? What can we expect, the American people expect?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know, and I've told my schedule in my office, let's remain flexible for the remainder of the week and the weekend, so I'm prepared to go back at any time. What I have heard is that there will be hearings in the Senate this week, in the House next week, and the House is likely to take a vote sometime during the week next week. You've already seen the vote in Britain. France will take a vote after we take our vote. And it still remains to be seen whether or not the president will be respectful of whatever the will of the House is. He maintains he has the ability to make a decision irrespective of the House vote. We'll have to wait and see on that.
All right, Representative Michael Burgess.